Okay, so get this right. We're talking AI today, but with a twist. We're going deep into the world of fractals.
Really gets you thinking, doesn't it?
You sent over some research, and let me tell you, it blew my mind. It's about how AI learns, you see. And apparently, figuring out where an AI model goes from, yeah, it learns, to, nope, total brick wall, it's not as simple as drawing a line.
Yeah.
We're talking fractals, people.
Not a straight line in sight. It really flips the script on how we think about AI and learning, doesn't it?
I got to be honest, the second I saw fractals and AI together, I was like, okay, we're going down the rabbit hole. It sounds like pure science fiction. But for those of us who didn't just crawl out of a Mandelbrot set, could you maybe break down why this is such a big deal? Why are fractals popping up in AI research, and why should we care?
Well, fractals, they're all about infinite complexity, right? Like those Russian nesting dolls, but patterns within patterns forever. And now we're finding that this is basically how AI learns. It's not a clean on or off switch. It's a whole landscape of maybe, and it just so happens to be shaped like a fractal.
So instead of like, here's the learning rate, crank it up, bam, AI is a genius.
Yeah.
It's more like, tweak it a tiny bit this way, chaos. Nudge it that way. Suddenly it's writing Shakespeare.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And that just sounds, well, terrifyingly complicated.
It is. Even the tiniest change to these, what are they called, hyperparameters, those little tweaks to the AI's learning process, tiny changes can make or break the entire thing.
So like, imagine trying to solve a maze, but the walls keep shifting around every time you blink. No wonder it's a nightmare to optimize these AI models.
Exactly. And this fractal thing might be why it's so hard. It's not about just finding the right settings. It's about navigating this constantly changing, crazy, complex landscape. And this is where it gets really interesting because this throws a real wrench in how we usually think about AI. You know, we talk about algorithms and data, very cold, calculated stuff. But this fractal business, it's like there's something more organic, more fundamental happening under the hood. It really makes you question what AI really is.
See, this is what I love about this stuff. It's like, hey, we built these AI things, but surprise, they're way weirder than we thought.
Yeah.
And speaking of weird and surprising, we haven't even gotten to the really juicy part of this research yet, have we? You're telling me there's a way to maybe make AI smarter, not by cramming it full of information, but by exposing it to complexity. Just complexity itself.
Now we're getting to the good stuff. It all comes down to the second paper you sent over.
Okay.
And this wild idea of training an AI on, get this, elementary cellular automata, ECAs for short.
Oh, right. ECAs. Those things are wild, like really simple rules on a grid, but they make these crazy patterns, right? Like almost like they're alive. I think I spent an entire weekend once just messing around with one of those simulations. I remember spending way too much time messing around with those simulations, mesmerized by how such simple rules could lead to such intricate results.
Yeah.
What is it about these ECAs that makes them so important in the context of AI research?
Well, some ECAs, they're what we call Turing complete, and that's kind of the magic phrase here.
Turing complete. Okay, you're going to have to refresh my memory on that one.
Right. So basically, it means that even though these systems are super simple, like ridiculously simple, they can theoretically do any computation that even the fanciest supercomputer can.
Whoa, hold on. You're telling me that those little patterns, they have that much power under the hood?
It's wild, right? It's like these little grids hold a universe of computational possibilities just waiting to be unlocked.
My mind is officially blown. So, okay, we've got these ECAs capable of crazy complexity, even though they look like, I don't know, a minimalist art project.
Yeah.
Do the researchers just show them to an AI and cross their fingers like, here's some complexity, kiddo, go learn something?
Not exactly. They actually use these different kinds of ECAs to train a language model. GPT-2, to be precise.
It's GPT-2, the one that writes all those, like, eerily convincing poems and stuff?
The very same. But here's the twist. Instead of feeding it text, they trained it on these cellular automata simulations. Imagine, like, teaching the AI to read the language of complexity itself.
So instead of Shakespeare, it's learning from, like, pixelated game of life.
You got it. It's like they're trying to get the AI to learn the underlying rules of complexity by observing these patterns unfold.
This is getting good. Okay, so they showed GPT-2 all these complex patterns. What then? Did it suddenly become a master ECA generator, like start spitting out new universes?
They actually wanted to see if this whole complexity training thing would make the AI, well, smarter in a more general sense. So they tested these ECA-trained AIs, and get this, they had them do things that had nothing to do with those simulations. Logic puzzles, for example. Even predicting chess moves. Talk about a challenge.
Okay, now I have to know, did it work? Did just staring at complex patterns actually make the AI smarter? Give me the good news.
Well, the results were definitely interesting, let's put it that way. Turns out, those AI models trained on certain types of ECAs. They actually did perform better on these completely unrelated tasks.
So they aced their logic puzzles after a crash course in pixel art. What is this sorcery?
It's like all that pattern analysis, it actually taught them something useful about problem solving in general. Transferable skills from staring at flashing squares. Wild, right?
This is huge. So there's something about training an AI on complexity itself, not just on specific tasks. But you said certain types of ECAs. Not all of them are created equal in AI bootcamp, huh?
You're catching on. It wasn't the simplest ECAs that made the difference, and it wasn't the ones that were just pure chaos either.
Don't leave me hanging. Which ones were the AI superstars?
The magic happened when the AI trained on ECAs that were right on the edge of chaos.
Edge of chaos. I feel like I'm hearing that phrase everywhere lately.
And there's a good reason. It's like the AI needs that perfect balance, patterns that were complex, tough to predict, but still with some structure underneath.
So it's like AI needs a good puzzle, but not one that's impossible to solve. There's a sweet spot, huh?
It does seem that way, doesn't it? And what's really interesting is the researchers didn't just observe this, they figured out a way to actually measure it.
Wait, hold up. You're saying we can measure complexity now. Isn't that like the opposite of what complexity is?
It does seem counterintuitive, but there are ways. They use a few different methods, but one of the coolest is called, get ready for it, Lempel-Ziv Complexity. It's all about how much you can compress something.
Hold on, compression like zipping a file on my computer.
Exactly. The harder something is to compress, the more complex it is.
So a random mess of letters would be like impossible to make smaller, right?
Yeah.
Because there's no pattern.
You got it. But something with lots of repetition. Easy peasy to compress.
Okay, I think I'm following. So more complexity equals harder to squish down. And they use this to, give each ECA a complexity score.
Precisely. But that's not all. They also use something called Wolfram's classification.
Wolfram, like the search engine guy.
The one and only. Turns out he's also big into cellular automata. This classification, it groups ECAs based on what kind of patterns they make. Some are simple, some are total chaos factories.
So between the compression trick and Wolfram system, they figured out which ECAs were in that sweet spot, that edge of chaos zone where AIs learn best.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really exciting, you see, because if we can understand what makes these patterns tick, what makes them good for learning, we could completely change how we design AI.
It's like we're not just building AIs anymore, we're figuring out how to make them naturally intelligent.
Right. It's a whole new frontier. But it does make you wonder, if complexity is so important for AI, what does that mean for us? For our own intelligence?
Whoa, good point. Like our brains just walking, talking ECA simulations, always searching for patterns and meaning in the chaos?
It's a fascinating question, isn't it? And it really drives home this connection between complexity, intelligence, maybe even consciousness itself.
We've gone from AI learning rates to the meaning of life in, like half an hour? This is why I love this show.
Always an adventure.
That it is. So we've covered a lot of ground today. Fractals, ECAs, the very nature of intelligence. Where does it all lead? It's a question worth pondering, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. AI is changing faster than we can keep up, and this research just goes to show how much we still don't understand.
But hey, that's half the fun, right? Grappling with the big questions, exploring the unknown. That's what it's all about. And on that note, this has been a mind-blowing deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explore the wild world of AI and the beautiful, messy complexity that drives it. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing. And remember, sometimes the most mind-bending discoveries come from the simplest of rules.